Can't believe you even have spooky music.
Did you know that 20% of the businesses don't make it through their first year? And nearly 50% close by year 5. Most of these failures are due to small, avoidable mistakes that quietly build up over time. Hello and welcome everyone to today's show, this Halloween themed session, Spooky Business Mistakes That's Costing You Buyers and Opportunities. I am so thrilled to be here today with my dear friend, Daniel Botero, an amazing 7-figure business coach who's made a huge impact in helping coaches and entrepreneurs grow their businesses. Together, we've helped many coaches dodge common pitfalls and build sustainable, thriving business. Today, we're going to cover what we call the spooky business mistakes, those seemingly harmless missteps that can end up costing you time, money, and clients in the long run. So, if you're a coach, consultant, or entrepreneur, you're in the right place. Type in the comment to say hello. Let us know what type of business you're in, how long you've been in business, what are your common business challenges as well. Let's get ready for some fun here today, for some real life examples, practical advice, and some laughs as well as we dive into these spooky mistakes. So, hey, Daniel, so welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Diana, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. So, just some background for we met just a year ago in Orlando. Very first
It feels
time. This is
much
just
longer. It feels like 2 years.
feels like 2 years. We became fast friends literally right after the first meeting. And then this year in April, you came to see me as well in Miami for a one-on-one mini mastermind here.
Yep, yeah, it was great.
I love it. I love it. So why don't we kick off the show? Maybe if you can really briefly introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your journey in the coaching industry specifically, and what led you to focus on helping career coaches.
Sure. I started being a full-time career coach. I've been in the career space. I used to speak at universities on how to help university students get jobs, probably over 12 years ago. And then in 2008, I remember May 5th, 2008 was my first day as a full-time, 2018 as a full-time entrepreneur. So going into 7 years. And I was a career coach. I wrote a book. I'm an author. And I then realized that I really was really passionate about business, and I wanted to help other career coaches because I have a podcast called How to Get a Job Podcast, and I've interviewed over 300 career coaches. And what I realized is that most career coaches are phenomenal, have great experience. They were either recruiters, they were either hiring managers, they're HR, and they have great experience on helping people get amazing opportunities, pivot, get promoted, and on. But they were struggling to build the business of career coaching. And so because I had already built a 7-figure career coaching business, I was like, okay, why don't I do that? It's a bigger impact, creates a bigger ripple effect. And also as a business, it's probably like the next stage of my business career. And so that's where I'm at today. For the last year and a half, I've been working with career coaches and helping them build their business to 6 figures, multiple 6 figures and on.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. What would you say has been the most thrilling aspect of this new business for you this year?
I think we've had a couple of clients that were part-time coaches who had estimated that it was going to take them a lot longer to replace their 9 to 5, and been able to them do that. And now they're full-time career coaches. That's awesome because they now have more time to be able to work with more people and then impact more people's lives. To just creates just a massive ripple effect.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I would say what's been fun also just for me, similar stages as well. You and I around pivot at the same time, going from career coaching to business coaching this year. So it's been so fun just having you be my sounding board as sometimes when I have like this challenge or I just need someone to bounce off idea, like you're just a speed dial away, which I really appreciate and love. And then you also share with me some of your business challenges. So this is such a perfect topic for us to talk about today here. And maybe I'll share a little bit about my journey a little as well. Is what I see is why I'm so passionate about this as well. I feel like if we can just really understand, you know, as a new business or new entrepreneur, is just really understand, like looking at business as a whole versus just looking at it just being a coach, right? If we look at it from a business as a whole of how can we not only help people, but also maximize our growth, our revenue, and bottom line at the end of the day. So today, let's just see where the audience here. We have some audience here today on LinkedIn and on YouTube here. We're going to say hello. Howdy, great seeing you as well. Murray from California. Oh, from Paris as well. Yolande, amazing. So we're going to be talking through these spooky mistakes, and we're going to use the SPOOK.Y acronym framework to walk you through some of these 6 common mistakes that we see. And then we're going to add in some like our perspectives, best advice, stories as well. And let's just have a discussion. Feel free to ask us questions there. So Daniel, I'm going to let you start with the first one. The first S of our spooky mistake is skipping financial planning and cash flow management. Can we talk about this? What's this common mistake that we see that coaches make and often overlooking financial planning?
I'm actually going to say that I made this mistake. So I'll start by telling you guys my story on how I made this mistake. I left corporate America. I had already spoken to over 200 places on how to get a job at universities all around the country. And I thought that because I had all these university connections, that it was going to be very easy for me to go and speak and get charged and get clients. And so I only thought it was going to take me, I don't know, like 3 to 6 months for me to like be able to replace my PepsiCo income. And in fact, I didn't realize how long it actually takes to build up a business. And it led me to ultimately having to sell my 401k to be able to grow my business. I wouldn't recommend that. And so to me, I think really looking at the data or like looking at your finances, where are you spending money? Where are you investing money? Because it's not just paying your bills and your mortgage. Starting a business costs money. And so I think in understanding your cash flow, understanding what's coming in, what's coming out, what's required, and if you think it's going to take 3 months, it's going to take 6 months. It never takes as short as we think. As entrepreneurs, I know we're very optimistic, but I think it's better to plan, like expect the best, but prepare for the worst.
Yeah, I can't agree more with that. Like this is such an important one. Why it's like number one for me here is things take longer than expected.
Yeah.
If you want to make, let's say 5 figures in like 3 months, probably would take longer than that, 6 months, or you probably could accelerate if you have someone to help you. But I think when we don't have a strong cash flow, we don't make good decisions, I feel, right, with a strong cash flow. I think right now, these days, I feel like with today's economy too, like having at least 6 or even at least 12 months of cash runway for yourself, I think it's really important. So meaning like worst case, if you don't make any money for the entire first year in your business, will you be okay or not?
Yeah.
Just having
Before
that.
we go, I think that also understanding you don't have to leave your job to do this full time. I think you can start while you have your job. You might not. It might take you a long time to get 1 year's worth of income before you make the pivot. But you can also like get momentum while you have your 9 to 5. You might have to sacrifice a lot of your time to do this after work hours and on the weekends, but at least get some momentum.
Yeah, get some momentum there. Yeah, just to have having something steady there. One of the common things I see within this, the cash flow planning that's impacting people's cash flow, Daniel, is how we set up also the payment terms with a client. So as an example, something that I'm seeing is sometimes they may set in their coaching term that they don't receive payment until the client gets results.
Mm-hmm.
So this essentially, the coach is tied into essentially the client needs to get in order to get paid. And that could have a huge cash flow problem, meaning that even if you may be generating clients or closing the sale, but if you have a term where you don't get your final payment or most of the payment until they get the result, then that's going to be a huge cash flow issue. And that's something I do notice. I think that's really, really important. And even right now with some of the clients I'm helping with negotiating bigger deals, some of the contract terms says that they don't get paid until the work is complete, or they spend 3 or 4 hours doing the work. And this is where I feel like it's leading to could be like bankruptcy as well too.
And I think that's where you have to balance that, because I also understand why they do that, because when you don't have tons of testimonials or proof, you have to show them a guarantee, right? But as you build your social proof, your testimonials, you can prove, you can go promises instead of results over promises. Sorry, like you now have the results. So it's results over promises. Then you don't have to do that type of work. And so in the beginning, if that's the only way you're able to get clients, is to say, hey, it's result driven. Once you get a job or once you get promoted or whatever that might be, like that might be what you do the first 3 to 4 clients. But once you got testimonials and you have results, you can do that. But if you're doing that while you have a job, if for some reason they don't pay, it's not the end of the world. If you're doing this full time, it becomes the end of the world.
Exactly. Absolutely. So something I recommend in this category of cash flow planning, something that I do every year, doesn't have to be complex, is just use a spreadsheet of anticipating, like right now we're towards year end here, is just projecting what your expected revenue could be based on the different revenue streams that you may have. And this also then helps you with, from a pricing standpoint, which we'll talk later on as well. But I think that's really helpful and also helps us make decisions in terms of where we invest our money, whether it's investing in a coach or software, getting for help, like that's all going to help you make those better decisions. I want to get your thoughts. Sometimes people ask me what's the rule of thumb in terms of running a coaching business of expenses to revenue?
I think you ultimately want to do a minimum of 50% profit margins on a coaching business. Like we don't have like products. We're not a restaurant where we have to pay food costs or labor costs. Like you could do 50% profit margins. And I would even say that's the low end. Now in the beginning, you might be investing, you might not have a lot of revenue coming in. You're investing a lot into softwares or even coaches. But after you've gotten to the point where you're building 6-figure businesses, you want to get to the point of 50% profit margin.
Yeah,
I've seen it up to 80% profit margin. Like it's very realistic for a coaching business to have 75% profit margin, minimum 50%.
Yeah, I agree with you. So that's a great benchmark for those who ask, like 50 to 75% in an online business when you don't have a lot of inventory. So that means like that 25% that you can allocate to other investments and costs or hiring for help there. Yeah, good. Okay, that's great to hear that. Anything else you want to add to this before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, like some benchmarks. I think the most expensive part about a consulting coaching business is acquiring a client. Like, so whether it's paying for a salesperson, if you ultimately hire a salesperson to do that, whether it's paying for marketing or ads, or the time that it takes you to do that, right? That's probably the most expensive part of the coaching business. It's acquiring a client.
Acquiring the client. Yeah, that's a good point. I agree with that, especially if you need to do any getting help, especially to help you with generating leads as well. Something popular I'm hearing these days, Daniel, is people want to hire, they call it, what's the word? Setters? Appointment setters?
Appointment setters, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's your perspective on that?
I think once you have a funnel that works, and so you just know that for this many leads this many sales calls, which means this many clients, I think then it's worth investing. I don't think you should rush into hiring a setter until you have a funnel that's working, right? Because if not, you're paying money for something that you don't know if you're going to get a return on investment. So I would recommend, as the coach, you do this first, like understanding your metrics of how many leads is it required to get them to a lead magnet. For us as a workshop, like we love our clients doing workshops, and how many people attending the workshop leads to sales calls and how many lead to a client. And once you understand the math, then you know how much you can allocate towards that appointment setter, and you can know if it's a good investment.
I agree with that. And I would add on to that is you want to be clear, which we'll get into this on your niche of what you're targeting. Otherwise, your appointment setter, it's hard to find your ideal client for you there and what that offer is. So absolutely. Amazing. So let's move on to the next one. So the next spooky mistake is the P here, which is poor brand presence and inconsistent messaging. So this is my favorite topic. I love branding, Daniel. That's like my jam of branding. I feel like when you don't have this clear, consistent branding, people may be confused and you're not as memorable or marketable of what you have to offer. And so one of my saying is I always say is that when you have a great brand, you have an upper hand when you have a great brand because you are more in demand. Yeah. And I really believe is that when you elevate your marketability, essentially your brand presence, you also elevate your perceived market value. So especially if you want to charge higher ticket, is that you want to have that solid brand. And what I mean by that, having a solid brand, is essentially also having that strong reputation of what is it that you want to be known for, and really doubling down on that. Because when you build that strong reputation, this is where it helps you with inbound leads or referrals there, right? Yep. So that's really key. Anything you want to add on to this
One thing, if you guys are listening to this, you'll know is that I am probably too honest to a fault. And what's interesting is I am having imposter syndrome with this P because I actually think that for the last year, I've been doing this wrong. In fact,
Tell me.
actually, as you're saying this, I am like, Diana, can I call you later? It's funny. So last week I had an in-person mastermind with some of our like our with our VIP clients. We had 7 of like our say 8 to 10 VIP clients that we work with, and it was towards the end of the master class, and I asked them for feedback. Right? I was like, hey, like just give it to me straight. Like, what's been the best part, the worst part? And the feedback essentially came down to what the theme of it. I am being successful at building, like we're doing 80,000 to 90,000 dollar months every month, like consistently, and we're being successful despite ourselves. Because what I realized is that our marketing is really confusing, and our brand, our messaging has been inconsistent for the last year. It's like one foot into like I'm still this career coach for international students, and then the other side I'm this business coach for career coaches. And then you put into this place that like I have a big team, but they're in Colombia, and then there's a lot of people who that my team is relatively young, so they feel like they don't know who I'm helping. They also like it's confusing them. And what's interesting is that a lot of them had the same concern of like, can this young group of people in Colombia actually help my business? And I have not been focusing enough to overcome that. And so once
Mm,
they're in the business, they're like, dude, once we start working with your team, we're like, wow, like I get it. Like I understand why you guys have been able to do this over and over and over again. But I'm not communicating that, or I'm not showing enough proof of the results of our clients. I'm not showing the testimonials. I'm not showing enough of what we do. So now if you see my LinkedIn this week, it's all business content. No more
mm,
job seeking advice. I've been confusing people. And so I have imposter syndrome. I am doing the P. I have a poor branding presence. They say my brand is for college students. If you go to my website, it's pictures of like my team who look like they're college students instead of like targeting coaches. And yeah, I am doing this poorly. I want to let all you know that if someone says they got their whole business in order, you should run the other way. I've never
yeah.
met a successful coach or a successful business person who doesn't have problems in their business. So that's my problem.
Uh,
Be about it.
I love it. I want to ask you. So you got this. I guess I'm hearing this feedback here. Like, what's the? I guess from a takeaway learning is what like it's learning is what you want to promote your team more as well. Like change the perception of how people see.
I don't know if it's like so much that, well, one, I want to make sure that everyone at least promoting like Salo. So you're going to see more of Salo because like just everyone realized what me and you already know, that Salo's a boss. All right. I also want to make sure that like our salesperson, Laura, that we're posting on her LinkedIn, that she's posting on her LinkedIn, because when people are having calls with her and they go to her LinkedIn, they're like, how is she going to help me? Right.
Yeah.
All right. And also, I just got to be like talking only business coaching, leadership, culture, and not job searching. And so that's the reality of it. It's like I just have to change. I just have to change the way I'm communicating that. Also, we took tons of pictures with our clients and stuff like that. So we have to update the website from having my team pictures, which is me, who I'm the oldest one there. I'm already young because most of my clients are older than me, right? Like most
Mm,
of my clients are already older than me. And so they already probably have this issue of not issue, but there's also of like, hey, how's this 34-year-old kid telling me how to run a business? Like, because most of my clients are really successful executives in corporate who are having their second career, and we're helping them use that into building the business. So I just think there's a lot of changes in the branding, the marketing of how I need to do it. And so if you're
yeah.
watching this, see the changes in the next couple of weeks because they're coming in hot.
I love it. I can't wait to talk more. And I just want to say the audience is saying appreciate your vulnerability and
Yeah.
transparency here. And I want to point out a few things. Like even myself today, for those who are looking at my LinkedIn right now, I tweaked my headline as well, the messaging more. And I think this is an opportunity for us to know is that as you grow and as you get more experience, you can tweak your messaging to be more specific because you have more proof or data or feedback from clients, right? So when you're starting out, you have what we call it, you see it from your perspective of how you see yourself, how you see your brand image, or you may do some research. You have what we call like a vague idea from that branding standpoint, right? Gathering, creating this word cloud of it. But as you do more of this work, you're going to hear clients to tell you like, hey, this is why I hire you. This is why I'm coming to you. So an example, I love that Daniel, you're sharing this as a case study something I've been thinking a lot more with the work, like now that I've been doing the business coaching for this past year here, is a lot of clients who come to me is not only that they're coaches, but they also want to become speakers, or they want to leverage speaking as a marketing tool to build their coaching business. And I'm also noticing my clients who come to me where they want to learn how to transition from one-on-one coaching to group coaching or build a hybrid program, because I've been doing one-on-one coaching for many, many years, and now I run a hybrid program. And so I tweak that accordingly, just based on like asking people like, why are you hiring me? Is because you're a speaker and you're a coach and you become a LinkedIn Learning instructor, so you can teach me how to create a course and launch a program. So my key takeaway here is it's okay to tweak it as you grow, but test it out as well. Give yourself at least like that 3 months or 6 months of data so that you can really then see, okay, what's working, what's not working. Ask feedback from clients there. Right? And so I think this is 2 parts. Is like one is like the branding piece, which is getting an overall in terms of the perception of how you want people to see you. But then also the messaging is really dialing into that messaging based on your ideal clientele, your niche. Yep. As well, right? What's the language that they really use? And so that you can also speak to them more specifically. And I see this a lot. Like right now, a lot of people tell me like, and we're going to talk about niche later on, Daniel, is that people feel like when they get too specific that they're going to rule out other people in coming to them. Like, I want to get your thoughts because you specifically support career coaches only. Like maybe you can share like why you decided to niche down into that area and why that's so important for you.
Well, I think that the best way to reach any goal is to learn from someone who's done it. Not only someone who's done it, but someone who's done it and taught other people how to do it. And so I think for me, like I've been a career coach for over 10 years. Like and I've always didn't have a successful business for 10 years. I've only had a successful business for the last 4 years. Like successful meaning making more money than I was making at PepsiCo. And so for me, if I try to be a business coach for everyone, I won't be the best business coach, but I understand career coaching. And so how many other business coaches out there understand career coaches? And it's hard to understand them unless you've been there, right? It's the reason why I actually think that the best career coaches are people who are helping others who were their younger selves, right? Yeah. And so for me, I don't think I've gotten to a situation where I've gone in a conversation with a career coach and I haven't been in their shoes. I've gone through it. I've made the mistakes. And as you guys can see, I'm extremely vulnerable. And I also know to admit when I'm wrong. And so like, I understand that. So for me, I think career coaching, I think 80% of business is the same. And so, but it's 20% that makes you different. And so ultimately, I think I can be the best coach for career coaches because I've been a career coach and I understand the business side of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Love the openness and vulnerability. Okay, this is what we're going to continue sharing, right? Life lessons of, just real life lessons of things. Let's get into the next one here, which is the O of the S.P.O.K.Y framework. And that is operating without systems for client experience. And Daniel, I know you and your team are an expert in systems, processes, and people here. So let's talk about this, of the common mistake that you see people make and your best advice.
So I talked about how bad we are doing at branding, but we are very good with systems, especially when it comes to client success. And so I will talk about this until my face turns blue. I think for me, I am obsessed with providing a great service, and not just me, but for our clients, for everything like that. And I think the only way you can generate predictable results or predictable service and forget a net promoter score of 9 and higher consistently is to have systems and processes. From the moment that someone swipes their credit card and decides to work for you, where does that take them? Does that take them to like a thank you page where a video where you're excited, you welcome them, you reinforce that they made the right decision, and there's clear next steps? Or is there a process for them to go through all the services that you're providing them? Is there processes for you to ask for referrals or testimonials throughout the way? Do you have a process for when someone becomes a zombie? I call them a zombie because there's going to be a percentage of people you work with that will pay you to work with you. And then 3 months, a month later, they ghost you. And you're like, what happened to them? And something might have happened. I mean, you'd be surprised what can happen, but they pay you and they go away, but we still want to provide the services. So to me, I am a big believer that if we can standardize as much as possible without losing the human touch, right? We still being relentlessly people focused, but create checklists, systems, and processes, then we're going to be able to generate predictable results which makes your business a more attractive and sustainable business.
I love this. I love this. Okay. I'm going to get vulnerable now. And I have to say, this is my weak area. I think this is why you and I work so well. I love branding. That's like what I'm really strong at. And I feel like this area, the systems piece, is what my weaker area. And I would say at the beginning, when I first started my business, a lot of it was still very manual, like sending things out just through email, no SOPs in place. I know you're really big on this. You have an SOP for everything, SOP for an SOP.
Yeah.
I don't really have that. Like, I mean, still to this day, I have some because I learned from you here, but definitely not to the level of what you guys have it here. I still remember when I first started out, a lot of it was just I had all these Google templates in my Gmail to resend these emails. And it wasn't until 4 years into my business when I had my first son, that was when I really got into being more efficient. And I really looked at, okay, what are things that I'm repeatedly doing, whether it's those emails that I send out or after a sales call, what's like this consistent things I'm sending out from my program perspective, the link to buy, what's next once they make the payment. That's when I really invested in a CRM system, a software to automate more of those things. Like it wasn't until like 4 years into my business there. So it took me some time. And that was something for me, it's almost like I felt it was a necessity. I did it because of have a child in place. I had less time. And so I was more obsessed with that. And then this year, I would say, because I pivoted as well from career coaching to business coaching, I felt like everything was starting all over again, right? Like building the new website, the new email funnels. And I would say I really focus more on also because I'm really good on the relationship building side of things, is a lot of it has been closing through relationship building, through conversations versus figuring out this entire funnel in place there. So I guess where I'm coming from is like you do need it, but at the same time, like if I hear people, if this is something really draining to you, either you outsource it, get some help, but you don't necessarily have to have everything to the point where everything has to be systemized. That's not something to totally lie. Like I know my business is not set up in a way how you set it up, Daniel. I think this is where you and I are so different and why we complement so well together and help supporting each other here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything else to add? Let me see if there's any questions in place here. Perhaps I want to talk a little bit about, there's a systems piece about we talk about process and SOPs that you talk about. When it comes to for clients asking, like, at what point should they invest in, let's say, a software like an email management software or CRM software? Like, what's your point of view on that? I can maybe I'm going to share some stories. I feel like I spent so much money picking the right software to get these systems in place.
Yeah, I don't necessarily that there is a lot of great softwares out there that can do the job. Like there's levels to levels. There's levels to CRMs, there's levels to softwares that you can invest. I think a very simple tech stack that I think will allow you to build your business to 7 figures. And after 7 figures, you might be able to even use this, or at that point you have enough money to buy HubSpot or Salesforce. But I think Kajabi does a really good job of allowing you to have where you could host your whole website there. It makes it easy for you to build a website. It gives you templates on websites. You can host your course there. You can upload videos, give all your clients their own unique login experience, right? It makes it really professional. You can send your emails there. And you can also do payments and collect payments there. So it's Stripe. It's your website, is your email, it's your course. So it's like all in one. And I even saw an email today because Kajabi just did a massive rebrand. And I just saw an email that Kajabi is doing 50% off other things. So I think it usually costs $189 a month. I think you can get it now for $100 for a month. And that to me is a bargain. If you have Kajabi, that would work. For a CRM tool, I also think you should get one from day one because CRM is not only for marketing, but then you translate that into client success. And I would say a CRM tool, we use Monday. It's not meant to be a CRM. It's a project management tool, but we've used it for CRM for the last 3-4 years. If you wanted to start with a live version, you could create a Google Sheet. That works too. Like I'm sure there's tons of templates out there on the web that you can get, but that would be it. Like I think Kajabi will solve 80% of your issues, and then get a CRM like either Google Sheets to start with or even Monday.com.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, I use Kartra, which is like a competitor to Kajabi there. It's also like an all-in-one CRM. I find it really helpful. The mistake I made, it was a mistake, but I think one thing I did early on when I invested in the software back in 2014. It was called Infusionsoft, which is also known
Yep.
as Infusionsoft. Was
Infusionsoft.
I hired an agency to implement that, and I think I spent like $30,000 back then to get it set up. And then I also had to pay these monthly reoccurring fees of hosting videos and all that. And it was a huge expense for me. That's something that I realized. And then when I switched from Infusionsoft to Kartra back in 2020, which my husband helped me did in like 6 weeks to migrate everything, I realized there were a lot of things I didn't need to have a payment, like to be paying for, that the agency charged me for, that they were making on the other back end. So that's something I would say from a learning is, I would say nowadays, a lot of the softwares are much easier, more user-friendly to use. It's less confusing. Like I think an average person who knows basic tech could figure a lot of things out there. So I would say do your due diligence as well before you hire a team to implement that on agency, because sometimes it's not what you really need. And I think that you need to add all that to your subscription. That's something I've really learned the hard way, where I spent so much money for 3 years of my business.
And it's like it's the reason why I remember why we even hire a wedding planner when my wife and I got married. It's because like a wedding planner might cost you $5,000, but they might be able to save you $7,000, right? So girl math, you just saved $2,000, right? And I say that because like that's why I think even sometimes working with a coach that has done what you're doing, or has like, you be like, hey, this is the tech stack I use. I know how to use it. I can support you. You don't need an agency. Might save you tons. It's like the same thing. One of our second module that we do with our clients is tech stack. First is offer. And then based on the offer and what we need to deliver, we understand what tech stack is needed.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, most of them use Kajabi. And by the way, I'm not paid from Kajabi to say that, but I do have an affiliate link if you guys want to use Kajabi.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear from the audience what tech stack you have. And a fun fact, if you're looking to invest in any tech stack, Black Friday is coming up. It's a great time to take advantage. There's usually some like 40, 50% off crazy deals out there. So let's move on to the next spooky framework, a formula here that we have is the next is the O, which is overlooking your niche and ideal client. Oh, this is a big one. I feel like you and I are so passionate about this, is especially for those who are starting out, is trying to please or appeal to everyone. But by doing so, that can really dilute the messaging and makes it challenging for people to see like who you work, who you help. And I think in the career industry or coaching industry that we see is, are you a client who helps someone land a job, or are you someone who helps someone to advance their career or thrive in their job there? And so, Dan, why don't you talk about this? Because I know you and I, we talk a lot about the importance of niching down ideal client. What's your thought process on this? It's a common mistake that you see people make.
Yeah, I think that the common mistake that I see people make starting out is that they don't niche because they're afraid to say, I don't have any clients. Therefore, if I niche myself, I am narrowing myself down, so I'll have less possible of clients. And this reminds me a lot of that dilemma of when people are looking for a job. Do you recommend your clients to apply to every opening that's available, or are you having them do more of a sniper approach and then focusing on a handful of companies where they have a better match, they're passionate about, they're networking, and they're building relationships? It's the same exact philosophy. Your odds are, if you're a career coach, you're going to tell them quality over quantity. It is the same thing here. When you niche down, the only way that you're going to be able to beat Goliath is by niching down and having an expertise in a niche that other bigger coaches are not tackling. And so if you have an experience as one of my favorite niches is Kyle, who's in our program, who used to be, he worked at Uber. He was one of the first 100 employees at Uber. His niche is now helping people land amazing jobs at startups because he understands how to negotiate equity. He understands the startup environment. He understands how startups interview because they're a lot faster. They're to the point. There's less interview rounds. He understands what they're looking for. And that allowed him to build an amazing business because he's not saying, I'll help you get a 6-figure job. There's a lot of people saying that. He's saying, I do that with startups only. And so I just think that not only helps you in marketing because it makes it more, it qualifies your candidates better, but then even more importantly, which is like I would say a side effect, is the biggest point, it makes it better for you to deliver an amazing service because now you can do things that only matter to your niche. When I was doing career coaching, my niche was international STEM students, which they're all from another country, which means they needed to deal with an immigration lawyer. 99.9% of career coaches do not need to have an immigration lawyer as a guest speaker. I do. It makes sense for my clients. My clients appreciate it. My clients didn't have $500 an hour to pay an immigration expert. I did. I could
Yeah.
bring an immigration expert once a month, be subsidized by the 400 clients that I have, and everyone gets value from it, right? And so those are the things. I also know that for international students, their biggest constraint is the way they communicate. They have great technical skills. So I can emphasize the soft skills where it might not make sense if you're dealing with somebody who wanted to break into tech, who lacked technical skills but had great soft skills. And so I just think when you have a niche, it just allows you to provide a better service and provides you to have a more better, clear marketing.
Yeah, I love that. It's great. And I'm going to add on to this. For those who feel like they've challenged niching down, another way flip question I'm going to ask you to think about is what differentiates you, what people come to you for, and what lights you up, what gives you joy, right? So even think about the clients you serve. Who are the best clients that you enjoy serving? And what are those characteristics or the common challenges that they come to you for? And that's going to help you hone in a bit more. So as an example, like I think about myself as well in my career coaching business. When I first started, I served more new grads just because I was speaking a lot in that space. But as I continued to grow, what I realized was I love serving more senior level professionals. So I even call myself an executive career coach. And when I actually started doing that, calling myself an executive career pivot coach, I started attracting more director level and above clients. And so it's just even knowing that of like what gives you more joy, right? Excite me more is like I love solving more complex challenges than someone who's a new grad. And so just by doing that, it just helps you also attract better quality leads there. So even for me this year, Danielle, that's something I noticed because I have 2 programs right now. I'm going to be very honest as well too. I have a mastermind and I also have an accelerator. 2 very different clientele. Like one is more for newer coaches and the other is more for established who want to scale. And I've noticed that I've enjoyed more the mastermind component more because my brain is more like I'm more a strategist and I'm visionary. I'm all about forward thinking versus having to do a lot of hand holding step by step there. And so I enjoy serving those who already have a business. So something for us to work with, who already tried a lot of things that may not be working yet and want to get to like that 20K, 40K, 50K months versus starting from ground. So I think even just paying attention to the people that you've already served and what's giving you energy and what drains you is going to help you to continue what you double down on there. Right? It's an evolving process. I think that's my lesson here is yes, you want to make that decision, but you can still evolve as you grow. Like even when said like, having this niche or ideal client, it's not saying that it's like set in stone that you can't make changes afterwards. Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Good. Anything else you want to add? I think this is I would say it was one of the first things I start with when I help with clients. Like yesterday, like I was working with a client who, one of her big things is like, I want to position, differentiate myself. And part of it is we talked about this ideal client. And what we looked at was more about the background that she comes from, an executive recruiting background, recruiting in tech and financial services and consulting. And I was like, that's a huge differentiation factor. And plus a lot of her clients were people managers. People in management. And so instead of saying I help mid-career professionals, is like I help business leaders in management, in tech finance to land next level roles. So getting even just more specific to that by looking also what your differentiation factors are is a great way to attract that ideal clientele there. Yeah. Awesome. So let's move on to the next one. So now we're on which one now? We're on the letter K of the S.P.O.K.Y business mistakes, which is what? Keeping prices too low or lacking pricing confidence. You want to kick this off?
Yeah. I think most I would say 99.9% of all coaches starting out dramatically undervalued themselves and are charging maybe by the hour. Like you're trading your time for money versus trading your time for value instead of charging for the transformation that you are helping your clients make. And because of that, you're saying, hey, like I can't charge more than $200 an hour because I think that's a lot. Like I used to make less in corporate America. I used to make less in corporate America, as an example. But what you don't realize that you're charging them not just for that 1 hour you're with them. You still have to take into account all the time that you spent to acquire that client. And so you're probably working a lot more than just that 1 hour that you're having that conversation. So long story short, I think you should be a value-based pricing where you're valuing your pricing for the transformation, not by your time.
By transformation, not by your time. I think that's a great one for us to talk more about. One of the big lessons that really changed the game for me a couple of years ago was really looking at the incremental or tangible value of what that you help your clients. So one of the business coach asked me, because I specialize in helping senior level people to make pivots, was he asked me, how much more did your clients make as a result of working with you? And when I did that spreadsheet of tracking everything, I looked at it, it was like over $2 million that year of all the clients I served. I was like, wow. And so then from that perspective, I look at from an ROI, return on investment perspective, it's significant. And so then that really helped me then convey the value of my work, the proven track record of success, but also the actual proof of that data there. And so I think it's really important of just realizing that, like most when we're starting out, is that we're charging by an hourly rate. I think when I started, I was like $50 an hour of an hourly rate, because that's what we were trained to think about, just by hourly rate or how many sessions. Right. That's how I started as well, like in life coaching training. But then as you grow, like you really want to look at the whole package and program and deliverables and transformation. There's not only the tangible value of, like say, landing the job or making more money, but the intangible could be greater confidence, greater clarity, greater relationships, greater communication skills, like all those things that you also want to map out of the feedback that you get from your clients to really see holistically the value that you bring there.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I love it. I agree. It's the same thing when I tell career coaches, they're like, I'm struggling to come up with pricing. I'm like, look, if you're just starting out, at a minimum, 3% of first year salary. At a max, 10%. Like anywhere between 3 to 10%, it's probably a really good pricing for a career coaching service. So if you're helping someone get $100,000 job, you charge them $3,000. It's definitely the low end.
Yeah.
It's definitely on the low end, because they're not just making $100,000. They're making $100,000 as a base for the rest of their career.
Yes.
And if they were making $75,000 before they started working with you, that's $25,000 transformation. That's a lot. Like if I were to come to you and say, you pay me $3,000, I give you $25,000. How many times will you'll say yes every single time, as long as it worked. And that's where I'm saying, that's where obviously as you start getting more like success stories, testimonials, then you're able to increase prices. But yeah, like 100%.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's something I recommend too, is like every 6 months, 3 or 6 months, is to revisit that and essentially look at the results you've been helping your clients get, whether it's tangible or intangible, write that out. Right. And then help determine whether you increase price or not there. But I think even just, I mean, we want to talk about common that we see the pricing that I see a lot of times people starting off is like what, $500, $1,000, $1,500. But what I've seen with a lot of my clients that I've helped, a lot of them have actually doubled their prices, like just selling like a 4K, 5K coaching package. Because we look at the data that they're helping people make $20,000 more to $100,000 more. And so then they're like, feel confident charging 5K or even 10K of the program other, right? And so it's less about counting the number of sessions, but looking at the transformation other.
Yeah. I love you said they have to have confidence to doing that, because it's easy for Diana and I to tell you to charge more, but if you don't have the conviction and confidence to do that on the sales call, you're not going to close a client, because the client's going to like they're going to just see the lack of confidence and conviction when they're having a conversation.
Yeah. I feel like the confidence is the key word here. I would say there's the confidence and mindset, and I feel like this is such a huge, to me, mindset shift to have in believing in your own value and worth. Like to me, it's because we haven't believed in our own worth and value yet that allow us to ask for more. And so when you do that work, so one of my formulas I always talk about being more confident is to identify your value. Identify your value. That's the number one. Write it down, right? Strengths, accomplishment. You still may not believe it yet. People can write it down, but they may not believe it yet. So then the second step then is believing in your value. So this is like the affirmations, things that you tell yourself, all those things, right? That's the second step of believing your value. Then the third step is voicing your value. So start talking about your wins, your success stories, your track record. Start talking about that from that perspective. And that's going to change the way you see yourself and how others see you, right? Because they're going to see like, wow, like you helped someone land this job. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Right. And so then you're going to start playing the next level. So one of my big shifts now this year has been really interesting. Like as I continue to play the next level, I feel like since meeting you, as well last year, I don't know if you know this, but since meeting you last year, you've empowered me to think bigger, not only from a business growth perspective, but really looking at holistically of the value we provide as a business coach, right? And how to charge from a bigger program, like high level mastermind perspective, like be willing to charge like 5 figures. And even this year, something that was next level for me was closing six-figure deal, a contract. Like right now, I'm in the midst of negotiating a six-figure licensing deal with a client.
Yeah.
And I believe in order for me to even have confidence to go into that meeting was that I need to believe of what I bring to the table, what I can do for the client, and believing in so much that I believe essentially that I'm worth it, that I can charge that as well. And so you made a very good point is that if you don't believe that, your body language, your tone of voice is not going to sound convincing, persuasive, or influential.
Yeah.
Right. This is a very, very important piece that I see. It all ties into mindset as well with pricing there.
Yep.
Okay. And then what I've seen is in terms of success now is that once we break through that mindset piece, naturally your sales will grow. Like once you believe in yourself and you close better, ties in sales conversations, you convert better, then you're going to make more money on a monthly basis as well.
1000%.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Anything else before my last one? I want to hear from the audience here who's still here with us. What are your key learnings so far? What are the ahas? What's insightful here? Share with us maybe with some mistakes that you made or things that you want to change here. We want to hear from you. What's helpful so far? So Daniel, let's move on to our last one here, which is the why. The why here is yearning for quick wins instead of long-term growth. Quick wins instead of long-term growth.
I remember this. When I was my corporate job, I was at PepsiCo, and we were in like the yearly meeting for like managers and executive directors, right? And the CEO of PepsiCo talked about how it's such an importance that you have to balance between the short term and the long term. If you just think about the long term, you might not even get there because you might go bankrupt. And if all you think about is the short term, you're not actually building a brand, and then you're not going to be able to actually be existent in the long term. And I think this is also something really important to take into account when you're starting your business, because you still have to balance this short term and long term. And a lot of times we rush to just yearning the quick wins because we need some money and we're at this point of desperation. And so I think one of the best ways to avoid yearning for those quick wins, to me, is having that safety account, right? Like going back to the S, having that 6 months, 12 months of savings, B, having a full-time job, or C, having a partner that can support you financially as you do this, so that you're not doing things that put you into long-term harm. Because one thing I would tell you, the difference between someone who's been in business for 1 year and is struggling to the ones who've been doing this for 5+ years, it's because they built a brand, and there's no way of building a brand if you're not actually being ethical and delivering in what you're promising. And so when you look at people who've been in business for more than 5 years, trust me, odds are is they built a brand and they were protective of that brand.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Like when I look at this balance of short-term, long-term, is the long-term is really that brand building. Like to me, that's like one of the most valuable thing. Like to me, like I've really doubled down on that. To me, the second piece that goes along with this, and this, Daniel, is like building your network.
Yep.
Really double down on your network, because one thing that I was reminded of this year is like everything happens through people, right? People buy your program because of you. And so just really building that reputation for greatness and what you deliver, like delivering great work, you're going to continue to be around for a long time. Like this year, Daniel, like I closed a 6-figure deal this summer because of a client who worked with me 10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago. She was one of my very first clients and referred an executive to me. The executive did not shop around, and I was able to close. And it's because of that reputation. So to me, that's the long term, is really focusing on that, and the short term stuff you're going to do that align with your long-term activities. I think that's really, really important. And I think this is why even the niching down, the messaging, those are the long-term that's going to guide you through in terms of your guiding principle pillars. And then through that, it's like, what are these marketing initiatives that you can do, right? One of the things I'm seeing right now, especially for those who are newer coaches, like starting out, and this is going on a bit of that desperateness of like, oh, I need to generate cash in the next month, is they may sell like some like quick low ticket stuff to get things up and running, but it may not tie into the overall brand or their long-term results there. And it could also be spending too much time doing the wrong thing and getting a big payout.
No,
right? I have a question for you. I want a question for you, because this is something really relevant to this and I heard you were on another show the other day. You made a big decision of pivoting from career coaching to business coaching. And prior to that, you were already making like 80, 90K months that you said in career coaching. Mm-hmm. And so how did you look at it from a long-term perspective? That was the right move, knowing that at the beginning, you may take a hit, right? That of that, like, how did you look at it from that short-term, long-term perspective of there?
Yeah, I'm driven by client success. And due to the fact that I see the data that it just becomes increasingly more difficult for international students to find a job because of immigration, because of the layoffs, because of AI, just tons of it. I just didn't feel like I can continue to sell that because the success that I can guarantee wasn't there anymore. Right. And so it was a really difficult decision because if I was just thinking short term, I would just continue to sell it without knowing that I can deliver on my promise. And I just thought that's not part of me. So I knew that I was going to take a hit. So what I did, again, being vulnerable, again, I took an $80,000 loan from Stripe, right? Because Stripe is one click you can borrow money, especially if you're like if Stripe sees that you're collecting $1 million a year, they're like, you want 80,000, no problem, here it is, right? So I took an $80,000 loan so that it can give me the peace of mind, right? It can give me the peace of mind that I didn't have to let go anybody on my team because, again, building the culture is just as much as building reputation and brand, and I didn't want to destroy that. And so we stopped selling. We stopped selling that program, and we made the pivot, and we took a short-term hit, but it's for the long-term result of the business. And when you make those decisions that are really, really scary, but as time goes on, you start looking back and we're like, hey, that was the right decision. And every month that goes by, I'm glad I made it. And maybe wish I would have done it a little bit sooner because I probably should have done it 2 months sooner, but I was afraid, right? And I was really afraid to do it.
I remember the day when you told me that you were doing it, but I could tell it was still like, okay, but ultimately it was the right decision there.
It was scary. I remember it was weighing on me. I took my team can feel it. I took 2 days. I disappeared from the face of the planet. I went to Savannah, Georgia, by myself. I told my wife, hey, I got to go. Like I told my team, cancel all my meetings. And I remember going to Savannah, Georgia, and just by myself. And I had dinner with a friend that I had met on LinkedIn. Her name is Emily. Emily Milianis. She's here. If you're watching this, you're an angel. I love you so much. And she had done this personality test called the Kobe assessment on me 2 years before that. Again, building those relationships. And I love Savannah because I used to go there a lot for work, and I was just walking around. It's such a beautiful town to walk around. I needed clarity. I talked to her. She knew me. She's like a psychologist. If you ever watch Billions, she is like Wendy Rhodes. Okay. And so I go to, in fact, if you're watching this, Emily, I'm going to call you. I I remember meeting with her, and she was asking the right question like Wendy Rhodes would. And Emily is just like the real version of Wendy Rhodes. And she goes, Daniel, it seems pretty clear to me what you need to do. And I was like, you're right. So
yeah. I love this. It gives me goosebumps. Like, I think as we close here, I think what you just reminded me as well, right? The importance of just, you got to trust yourself and your intuition of doing the right thing. Like even for me, similar, like for many years, I wanted to pivot. I want to do something different. This was like even before the pandemic, 2018, 2019, I thought about that. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, I'm just going to continue doing this thing just because I want to serve and help people. And then it wasn't really until last year when I ran my first mastermind in Mexico, like all the coaches there were like, Diana, this is your new calling. This is your thing. Like you light up. And I remember having goosebumps when people were telling me this. And I came back like, yes, I'm going to do this. But then I was so afraid. I was like, I spent 10 years building this business, and now I'm going to make this change. And I remember going to Paris on this mastermind, another women's retreat, where I had this big wake up call that this one message that my friend said to me, that do not let your past expertise or what you've built determine your future.
Yeah.
So I was holding on to the fact that I've built all this because of my brand. This is very valuable there, and I'm walking away from it. And so I took a dip last year too, in terms of saying no to taking on more one-on-one clients and saying yes to creating more LinkedIn learning courses. That was part of my transition plan to make space for that. And so that I can create and start taking on new clients here. And I went into a curiosity mode where I was open to new opportunities. Exactly this time of the year, a year ago, start being open to new possibilities and coaching different businesses. And 3 months, it was my test ground, 90 days. I was like, I love this. Energized me, excites me. Like I'm a very much feeling person. So by Christmas holiday, it was just like one of those things like, Diana, are you going to go all in or not? It was like one of those things. I was like, what does my heart tell me? And funny story for those who are listening here is I got invited to one of my biggest speaking engagements ever in January, speaking at LinkedIn Career Talks on how to pivot your career, build your brand for 2024. 17,000 people registered and thousands of people came on. I got like hundreds of people on my list. My entire calendar was booked up. And I'm like, the moment I decide to pivot, I got this big speaking opportunity where a lot of people want job search help. And I had to make a decision. Like the decision of, do I continue this because people are knocking on the door, they want to hire me, or what you taught me was set an affiliate with other people to refer your leads out, which is what I did. So now I also have affiliate income as well, where I can refer leads out. And that was a tough decision, but I was like, I trust this is what I want to do more, and I'm just going to double down on it. And I feel like it was one of the best decisions because by surprise, I was like, I've achieved my best year yet, like double my business this year.
Yeah.
And so I think going back to this long-term growth is like, yes, you may take that short-term hit of certain things, but are you heading the right direction long-term that you believe like it's going to be more profitable, more successful, but also more fulfilling there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes. All right. Any best advice as we wrap up? This is such a great, I feel like we had like a heartfelt conversation here, Daniel.
We did, except this is public and a lot of people are going to see it. So I don't know how I feel about it, but it's there. Good luck. Enjoy.
I just want to say, like, I mean, it's real. Like, first of all, I want to say I really appreciate you. I really do. Like, I felt like it was meant for us to meet up last year in Orlando. By chance that you and I had dinner together, and we became fast friends ever since. Like, you're one of the few that's always popping up in my WhatsApp here. So I want to say you're not only just a great friend, but you really genuinely care, want to help people. And I love that we complement each other where we can also refer each other business. Like we talk about how we have both of our strengths here. And I think this is something really important. As you grow in your business, find those folks who I call it collaboration over competition, right? Even though you and I are doing similar things and helping coaches, but we have different strengths. What we're good at, right? So that's so important. Something I really believe in is double down on finding people you want to have being part of your inner circle to help each other rise. Like that's the power to be long-term sustainable growth, in my opinion. And I've seen this in my business the last several years. When I double down, surround myself with the right people in the right room, my business just does quantum leap from there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's in the feeling is mutual, and you know that. And I'm not the best at writing it like you do on LinkedIn posts, but I am the best at trying to explain it to you in person or at decent call like this. I appreciate you. And thanks for being such a good friend. I will be messaging you later today about my branding and advice on that. So
Thank you. Daniel, can you tell others where they can find you? I just popped up your community. You have 500 career coaches in your community there that you can check out and join if you're a career coach to be part of that community.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are a career coach and you believe in collaboration over competition, check out this community of over 550 career coaches now. We are growing massively. I think we add about 25 to 50 new members every single week. Just to give you guys a perspective, it's absolutely free. We have live events. Diana's been there. We had show last week. So we have amazing events. I think Reno Perry is going to be the next speaker there. And if you're a career coach, message me on LinkedIn.
Yes, connect with Daniel on LinkedIn. He's very active, and I'm really excited to see your new content and new brand messaging. We'll definitely jam about that there further.
See you later. Bye, guys. Bye, Diana.